right, here we go.
All right.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Always an Expat, a podcast for British expats in America by British expats in America, brought to you by fellow British expat, yours truly, Richard Taylor. My guest today is Jeremy Bettel. Jeremy is the founder and CEO of the newly minted Vitality Collective, which we are absolutely going to get into. He's a Brit, obviously, but after studying in Leeds, he hightailed it out of the UK and has spent his entire working career in the US in the world of high-performance professional sports. So I'm sure he's got some great experience and stories for us. All right, let me just get the boring stuff out of the way. Always an Expat is a podcast about the expat journey, specifically being a Brit in the US. It is brought to you by Plan First Wealth. Plan First Wealth is a business I founded and run today, and we work with successful British expatriates living across the US. People like the ladies and gents who feature on this show, and we help them make the most of their opportunity and avoid the expat landmines. Now, with that being said, whilst Plan First Wealth LLC is an SEC-registered investment advisor, the views and opinions expressed in this program are those of the speakers and do not necessarily reflect the views or positions of Plan First Wealth. Information presented is for educational purposes only. So, without further ado, let's do this. Hi, Jeremy. Welcome to Always an Expat.
Richard, thanks so much for having me on today.
Good. Good, you're awake. You didn't doze off during that. Well, thank you. I appreciate it. Well, look, I'm excited to talk about this. You and I have chatted a bit. I think you've got a great story to tell. But I always start with the same question. Where are you now? As in, literally, where are you now? And more importantly, how did you get there?
Yeah, I'm upstairs in my office, so I just made my tea and came up the stairs.
Oh, very British. Maybe tea. English breakfast tea? Or are you...
actually, no, yerba mate. Yeah.
Okay. Oh, very California. You're in California, right? Very California.
Exactly right. Exactly. No, I'm in Santa Barbara, California. Yeah. So.
Nice.
Yeah. It's been a part of my journey. So about 15 years ago, I lived here, and then from about 3 or 4 seconds after stepping off the plane in New Jersey in January, I have been trying to get back here.
I knew where that was going. The moment I heard New Jersey, I knew.
Yeah.
I mean, Santa Barbara's magnificent, isn't it? Like, Leeds is a great place. Leeds is a great. I spent a year working in Leeds. It's a wonderful city, but Santa Barbara is Santa Barbara. Right? It's
it has a couple of things that Leeds does not have.
Yes, that's one way of putting it. Yeah. Well, okay. So tell us, how did you end up in America in the first place?
So after studying in Leeds, I finished my undergrad in exercise science and came back to Leicester, where I'm born and raised, and was working at David Lloyd Leisure in Leicester. So I'm personal training. I'm supervising the gym floor. And it was great because back when I knew absolutely everything there was to know. You're an absolute genius when you get your undergrad, and so it's just. As the year went on, it was just like, there just has to be more to this industry, this health and fitness industry, this sports performance industry. But I hadn't been exposed to it yet because back then, I grew up playing rugby, so it was the case where it didn't turn professional until '95. So much of my playing career was an amateur sport, and so we hadn't seen the professionalism that was in American sport yet. The strength coaches, the medical staffs and all this sort of stuff. So you just sort of left there with no real examples of, well, how does this become a career outside of helping people set up the machine weights at David Lloyd's? But I knew there had to be something. So, go on.
No, it's really interesting to hear you say that, because I don't know where your story is going for this, but I can just imagine so many people have had that journey. Have gone from college or university, started in David Lloyd or wherever, and then gone, is this it? Really? And I'm interested to know how you took that and found something else.
So it was really interesting because my dad actually moved over to the States when I was about 9, and so with him moving over here, we'd had somewhat of a connection. We didn't visit often, but a bit of a connection to the States. And he was visiting the UK, and I was just sort of telling him, just a bit frustrated. And he suggested, well, there's a university close to where I live in the States. Why don't you come over and do your master's for a year? and just see something different. So I thought, you know what, like, there's nothing really keeping me here at this point. Why wouldn't I do that? And my whole mentality was that if I just hate it, then I'll come back.
Mm-hmm.
Right? I've got family here. I've got everything else I need. So really, though, I didn't see a risk in it. And so about 2 weeks later, I was in the States with my backpack and a couple $100 that had converted, and started that process of applying for visas and applying for school and all that sort of business. So,
well, you moved out here first and then started doing it from here.
Yeah, so came over and started applying for school, because you got to have an offer for school first. And so it was probably about a year-long process, quite a frustrating one of sort of getting the acceptance letters and getting all, because then you've got to have all the financial approvals and all this sort of stuff. You get all those letters, and then you come back to the UK and you go through the whole visa process at the embassy, and they are generally massively unhelpful. So you end up with a couple of trips to the embassy, because you get all these forms to get the final form. So you take the final form, and they're like, well, where are the other forms?
Yeah.
Like, obviously I have them. Right.
Yeah.
So that's a really interesting process to go through. And so that just started the ball rolling. That's sort of how I wound up in the States, but it was only supposed to be for a year, and then I was going to come back, but here I am. It's 20 coming up on, this will be year 21.
Year 21. Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. So you've been here longer than, well, about the same time as the UK then, right?
Yeah, I'm coming right up on crossing that threshold. Yeah.
Okay. Tell us. So you do your masters, and then what happens?
Well, it's interestingly, I actually met my wife the day I arrived in the States. She was basically the first American I met. Yeah, absolutely.
No way.
Right. Yeah.
Wow.
It's crazy. So my dad had ended up moving to a town called Lebanon, Tennessee.
Uh-huh.
And it's about 30 miles outside of Nashville. And he bought the house that Michelle grew up in. And it was on their family property. And Michelle still owned a house there. She was in the process of selling. And so, my dad was going to be dog sitting for her that night. And I dropped my bags down, and there was a knock on the door, and there's Michelle. So, amazing.
Oh, wow. And wow. How long have you been married?
We will be in June, July-ish, 19 years.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay, that's very cool.
Yeah,
very cool.
It's another one of those amazing things that sort of happened. And so that, I met Michelle, got into the Masters, really enjoyed it. Coming towards the end of the Masters, they invited me to stay on and do my PhD, which I was really flattered about, really honored to be invited back to do that. Michelle had some other opinions on it at the time. It's slightly demoralizing for her, but yeah, no, she was there, and it's like, of course you got to do this, and so that sort of extended the stay. Okay, well, I'll stay and finish the PhD, and really that period of getting into school was when I started seeing the professionalism around sport. Even at the college level, like I was at Middle Tennessee State, and it's not a huge football program, but I go in and they've got this weight room, and I've never seen anything like it in my life. It was just spectacular compared to anything I've seen. I'd only ever really been in commercial gyms. And so you go into this weight room that's just, it's vast, for one. They've got 10 strength coaches on staff. They've got all these different varsity sports, and you just start being exposed to these different levels of services. And that's when I started realizing, this could be a career, right? You can really be a part of a support staff optimizing athletes. And so it changed my outlook on how I could build my career. And going through the PhD, it really, the PhD sort of puts you on a track where you're going to be a tenured professor, right? And everybody's sort of invested in you following their path into academics. But I never wanted to do that. I wanted to go out. If I was going to teach something, I wanted to have done it first. So as I got to the end of my coursework in my PhD, I thought, well, no one's going to want to hire a PhD with no experience. And so I better go out and do something. So I left the PhD, went and got a job with USA Rugby, which was again a dream come true, because got to work for a great mentor there in David Williams, who was the strength coach. Got to go to a World Cup in 2007 in France, so we supported the team all the way through that. We played against England, which was amazing.
Wait, is that... No, that's the one. We won the one before, didn't we?
That's right. So we won the one before, but England went to the final in that one.
Oh, did they? And
yeah.
USA played England, and you were on Team USA, or
exactly. Well, I was,
really?
Obviously in the support staff.
Yeah, you were in the support staff. That's what I meant. Yeah,
It's all the players that I grew up watching, right? So these are all.
Yeah, of course.
It was a really meaningful moment. We played South Africa and Samoa and Tonga. So it was just an unbelievable
so
experience.
Cool for you as a lifelong
amazing.
rugby player and sports enthusiast, suddenly finding yourself at a World Cup as part of a team.
Yeah,
I don't know. As part of this, that must have just been like pinch yourself moment. Only wouldn't have happened if you hadn't gotten that plane and come to America.
Well, and it's I think there's part of a mindset, even just getting that role of sort of taking risk and taking chances, taking opportunities, and you sort of don't know where they're going, And I'd come back and I'd notice it a lot around certainly my grandparents and people like that, just like, it's not worth the risk. Don't go. Stay here, get a job. Stay within what you're doing. And it just didn't feel right to me. It felt like I just had to keep going. And so getting that opportunity, and then my other grandparents on my mum's side were at that World Cup. They came to one of our games, and it's one of my last memories. My granddad passed shortly after, but seeing my grandma and granddad and mum and dad up in the stand as we sort of walked around the pitch after. You thank the fans and for the support, because we were an underdog, so they're always supporting the underdog. So and seeing them up there and they're waving little American flags and all this, and it's one of those iconic moments when you just like it's just amazing to be a part of. Yeah. So that was
entirely because you got on that plane.
Yeah.
Really? Right.
And that's exactly it. Yeah. Yeah, and then from there it was. I don't know, it's been this cascade of events throughout my career that's sort of extended my stay in the States, and I've always thought I'll move back, but it just, something keeps happening. You get on this treadmill and it keeps extending. So then one of the physical therapists who worked for USA Rugby had some clinics out here in Santa Barbara. And so we were chatting at one of our camps, and he said, well, you should come out to Santa Barbara and check out what we're doing. And it was really fortuitous timing, because my contract with USA Rugby was just through the end of the World Cup. And so from there, I spoke to Michelle and well, you want to go to Santa Barbara? And that was a very short conversation. Let's do that. So out we go to Santa Barbara, and you get here and you're just like, oh my God, like, never seen anything like it. The mountains coming right down to the ocean, and, just this beautiful, quaint, like, little town, and it's spectacular.
It is like, wait, people live like this?
Mm-hmm.
It is a little slice of paradise. And
it's amazing. Yeah.
It really
and
is.
You can, like, February is sort of the rainy season. So, we get a little bit of rain in February, but then, but you can go out, you can walk the dog every day of the year, right? There's no days, and the place is very accessible. So there's sidewalks everywhere that you can get into the mountains and hike. You can go to the beach, and so you can be outside doing stuff every day, and you forget that, like, how that is when you come to New York, and it becomes very different in the winter.
I'm just outside of New York, and I can tell you, in Greenwich, I walked the dog yesterday, but it wasn't fun. And I can also tell you, there's something wrong with America when you say there's sidewalks everywhere, and I think, what a place.
Yeah.
I mean, it's so dangerous around where I live. There's no sidewalks, and it's lethal, and it winds me up every single day.
Yes.
What are you doing?
Like, honestly, like, from leaving Santa Barbara, I don't feel like I went outside for 10 years. Like, we just weren't able to walk anywhere. Either it's too hot in the summer, or it's too cold in the winter. Anything you want to do, any exercise, you're sort of paid to do inside. It's a spin class. It's a gym that you're lifting in. It's something that it's just. It was very stark after leaving Santa Barbara.
Well, just tell me though something. So I've lived on the West Coast briefly and the East Coast, and West Coast is mega. I mean, it's just mega. East Coast, I do love the Northeast where we are because it's not like home. It's not like the UK, but it does have a feel to it, right? New England does have a UK-ish feel to it. The Four Seasons are obviously lovely when they're not, you're not being battered by hot or cold. And something that I didn't think would matter to me, but does, was the time difference is just more manageable. Yeah, I feel far away from Europe here, but manageable. On the West Coast, I felt really far away, both in time difference and literal distance. And do you feel that at all, or
massively? Yeah, you feel really separated, and disconnected. It's a real challenge being on this side of the States.
How do you manage
a lot of time. I don't know that you do. I mean, you plan time at the weekend to call your family at home, but it's. If you miss the window, you miss a week of talking to people. So it's hard in that, a month can go by and you've blinked and you've not spoken to anyone, back home. And so, that makes it really hard to be on this side of the States. Yeah, I agree. There is no way to manage it. You just, there's no way to handle it. You just manage it. Yeah, and it's just everything's a trade-off in life, isn't it? I guess, and that's you're in Santa Barbara. It's mega, but you have to pay Californian tax, which is less mega. Yes,
right? And that same issue with the distance. Right. So tell us, you're back on the East Coast for a while. What are you doing here? You involved with New York, the soccer team, was it?
Eventually, yes. But so a couple of stints on either coast. So did USA Rugby. Then came out here to Santa Barbara to work with Maury Hayashida, who owned the clinics here in town. And then from there, so working in post-rehab, learning a bit more about the rehab process as a strength coach. How do we take a relatively healthy athlete who has, for example, a sore shoulder and still be able to train and prepare them for their sport, right? Because everyone can't do everything, but they can still play the sport. So learned that. Then got the job as the head strength coach at UC Santa Barbara, the college here. So it was just a great proving ground. It was 450 athletes. It was me and my assistant, Matt Herring. And we were immersed in this environment of performance, which was just incredible. Through that role, really connected with a facility here in town called P3. And they work with a lot of professional athletes. And through them got connected then into the NBA. Right, so that's when I got my job with the Brooklyn Nets. So first stint really Brooklyn on the Nets. East Coast proper. I was that was the move in January. We get on a plane, and it's 80 degrees Fahrenheit, and we get off the plane, and it's minus 20 degrees Fahrenheit.
Yeah.
It's just a brutal transition for us.
Oh yeah.
We'd been in Santa Barbara long enough that we just basically owned flip flops, and maybe you had a hoodie. Yeah, exactly. It really did. Yeah. So that was the first stint on the East Coast. Yeah, about 5 years with the Nets, which was just spectacular. Like? Oh, mate, it was unbelievable. Again, first of all, it was terrifying. Right, first time in the pros, and the NBA sport in the States. It feels so much bigger. Like the TV contracts are bigger. The entertainment is bigger. Like you go to a rugby match at Welford Road in February in Leicester, and everyone's in their coat and you're watching rugby, and then you go home. Yeah. You come to an event here and there's cheerleaders, they're firing stuff into the crowd, there's music. Yeah. It's the entertainment industry. It's what you really come to realize. So you just think, man, you're going to get there and everything's going to be just big, right? And in the NBA, it really is.
Yeah,
it's an interesting place for a 5'9" Brit to be.
So how was that? So your background's obviously rugby and sport and conditioning. You've presumably got no background in basketball. Nope. Is that a problem? Is that cool? Talk us through that.
It was really interesting. I barely worked in a sport that I know anything about since USA Rugby. So it's been an interesting journey, but I think as practitioners in sport, we sort of support the training for the sport rather than the sport itself. And so with that, our skill set is agnostic really to any sport. It doesn't matter. If you watch the sport, you understand the physiological demands of the sport, you understand the biomechanics of the sport, so what are the movement patterns? And so you can train the athlete to play the sport. Same with a therapist, like, well, I don't know baseball, like, could I work in that? Well, could you treat a sore shoulder? Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
So if you've got a human body, I can work with you. So going to basketball, it was really eye-opening because, number one, you've got 15 players. I've gone from 450 to 15 players. But the lever systems for a basketball player, when you're 7'3", your femur is as tall as I am, right? And so how you train these guys, and people are quite harsh on NBA players. Oh, they're soft, they're prima donnas, they're this, they're that, and they don't like to lift and all that sort of stuff. Well, yeah, no kidding. Like at 5'9", I'm built for the weight room. My lever system makes it really, I'm optimized for lifting heavy weight. When you're 7 feet tall, it's so hard. Just the lever system, you would have to be 10 times stronger than me to squat the same weight as I did. And so that really is where having some empathy for the players, not forcing them into situations where they didn't feel comfortable, but just getting to know them. I think winning some trust, that I didn't try and pretend to be a basketball guy. I didn't try and, pretend I was something I wasn't. I just, here's what I do, and I can help keep you healthy and keep you going.
What's it like dealing with professional sports people?
The athletes are wonderful.
Are they?
Yeah.
Okay.
Outside of that, it's questionable. But
oh really?
Yeah. It's harder dealing with the personalities who are not athletes than it is dealing with the athletes. Like those guys just want to play their sport. They're great guys, but you got to understand they're not exercise science students or nutrition majors or anything like this. They're really good at one thing, and that's playing their sport. And so people want them to be, like, oh, these guys will want to do anything and everything to become great. Well, some of them.
Yeah.
Not really. Like they're already really great. So just, I don't know, a bit of empathy and a bit of education, helping them, meeting them where they are and bringing them along. The athletes are they're wonderful. I just love them.
The difference between a Ronaldo who is, going to put in every minute of work to become the best in the world, whereas a Rooney who just wants to play football. And go for
exactly. And he's going to be great, right? And we get, like, as strength and conditioning people, we get all offended by that.
Right.
Oh my God, he's so lazy. Oh, he's this, he's that. Well, he did okay.
Yes, yeah, he's doing all right. Yeah. So from NBA, then what?
NBA to NHL. So a switch from a sport where
you're
doing 100% vertical to 100% lateral.
Wow.
Yeah.
Hockey looks so much fun.
It's great.
It wasn't big in the UK at all, was it? I mean, I think it's growing now, but it wasn't big at all. But we've just started my kid ice skating, and so I'm seeing and being exposed to hockey. God, it looks so much fun.
Yeah,
I wish we'd played it.
It's amazing. It's amazing. When you look at it, I've been on ice skates. We've all been to the rink. I can skate. Yeah. And you watch these guys move, and you're just like, oh no, I can't do that.
Yeah, no, it's remarkable.
Thing. Yeah, it really is. Like sometimes I'd watch them during practice, but I'd stop watching the hockey and just watch them skating.
Yes,
and it was just mind blowing that you've got to be that good a skater and be able to play the sport.
It's funny you mentioned that. So my kids don't skate now, so I'm skating with them, and I quite enjoy being on ice skates, honestly. And I'm just kind of teach myself to go backwards. So I'm watching them skate and going backwards and like stepping over backwards. You're like, wow. I don't even know how to begin. I don't even know how you do that. I can't even imagine myself ever doing that.
Yeah,
it's remarkable.
And these guys aren't land mammals. It's really funny because you take them out in the summer and you do like conditioning and sprinting and stuff like that, and they look as awkward as I do on the ice when they're not
Right.
on the ice.
Is that right?
Yeah.
That's so
Oh,
funny.
absolutely. Yeah, these guys have just spent so long, and everything in hockey is sideways. There isn't one thing that happens front to back or up and down.
Oh, really?
So it's really interesting to watch them actually move with like real ground reaction forces.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so it's fascinating.
How does the business of hockey compare to the business of basketball? Is it one and the same, or is it a completely different culture within that sport?
Totally different culture, and totally different economics. The NBA is very diverse. It's the television contracts are immense, and it shows everything that happens in the NBA is just big time. It's show business. And then you get to the NHL, and it's a very traditional, very Canadian sport. It's sort of amusing. Like, there hasn't been a blue collar person in the NHL for quite some time. They get paid very well. But there's this mentality of, no, we're blue collar, we're hardworking, we're this. And so progress is sort of limited almost because of that. It's like, no, we don't want to progress. We want to make it hard on ourselves. It's like this grind mentality. Yeah. Yeah. And so
it's funny because it's not a cheap sport to participate in, or to participate in, like, just the gear, the travel.
Yeah.
It's not, middle class America. That's going to be a stretch for them to really
100%.
play that.
That's
and
why I
follow
say
it, right?
There hasn't been a blue collar person in the NHL for a long time. If you make the NHL out of Toronto, which one of the stats was like something around 60% of the NHL comes from the Greater Toronto area.
60%.
Yes, it's absolutely bonkers.
That
so
is
you've
nuts.
got imagine how good you've got to be coming out of Toronto.
Yeah.
Right. From an early age, parents are spending $30,000 a year just from 11 on coaches and equipment and travel and all those things. So the economics of playing and becoming good at hockey are just unbelievable. So it's a very upper class sport, and there is zero diversity within the sport, and I think, largely they're pretty comfortable with it being that way.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and so it's a very different culture to the NBA. But just sort of that, a different culture. It wasn't actually doing my job was really easy, because I went from being the strength coach to now overseeing the whole system as a performance director. So I'm overseeing everything from medical, rehab, first aid, strength conditioning, nutrition, everything that touches the athlete.
These are very linear steps for you, right? From running the whole conditioning at a college to being the strength and conditioning at an MBA to running the entire program at the NHL. Like, this is
a
clear step up
exactly.
each time,
just,
right?
Just keep taking these steps.
What happens after that? What happens after being a performance director?
So, that's sort of where I started thinking about getting out of sport. So I went from the Leafs, and it was fantastic. Had a wonderful experience in Canada, and if you're going to be in hockey, be
so
at the
you were
Maple Leafs.
in Toronto as well? Oh, yeah, sorry, I assumed you were still in the north here, but you were in Toronto. So you were you're in the best place to be doing this as well, with the best team. I don't know. Tell me.
Center of the hockey universe. It's the biggest team. They haven't won. They haven't won a cup since the '60s, which is something that the Toronto fans are long suffering over. But if you, like I say, if you're going to be in the NHL, be at the Maple Leafs. It was unbelievable. Like the fan base, it gives you a warped view of how well the NHL is doing, because you've never played in an empty arena. Everywhere you go is full, and it's usually mostly your fans. So that was just phenomenal. So we ran a great program there. We ended up putting together a program where we went 3.5 years without having a non-contact injury, which is pretty unprecedented in the world of sport, especially in a collision-based sport like that. And so then went from Toronto, performance director there, to replicate that over on the West Coast with Anaheim. And that was the year, like, so we're getting through that first season, and then COVID hit. So actually pretty good timing, be on the West Coast. We were living in Laguna Beach, so good spot to be during COVID. If you're going to be locked down, be locked down there.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. And then, so after Anaheim, I was there a couple of years, built a system for them. And then we went out to switch sports again, went to football, to the MLS. And so went to New York City Football Club, who are part of City Football Group with Man City, and now God knows how many teams around the world now. I think it's in 12 to 16 or something like that.
Wait, I didn't know that. Mm-hmm. These teams are all linked. That's what I mean. I saw there's a visual link, but they're literally they all under the same umbrella or something. Or
that's correct. Yeah, so City Football Group are the central group out of the Middle East, and they own City, they own New York City, Melbourne, they own Mumbai City. There's Troyes in France. There's a team in Belgium. There's a team in Uruguay, Brazil. So they've got a network, and it's basically the world's biggest scouting network.
Oh, wow. Is that the first time that's been done?
I don't think so, but it's certainly being done at scale, very quickly. Yeah, and it's a fascinating concept, what they're doing, and it's just matriculating these players. They have a strategy where essentially it's moving players around the globe. You strategically, if you play a certain number of minutes within a certain league, then your likelihood of making it to the next level goes up. And so it's just moving these players through these mini transactions. And essentially it's a big way for them to make money. They sign a young player for X amount and sell them on at a 10 times value. So you just keep that going throughout the system. And it's hugely profitable, but then also hugely influential in their success at the top level with City.
So that took you. So you're in New York, and now you're back in Santa Barbara. You've been around. You've moved around
all over, mate. All over, yeah. So we that was the last stop in pro sport. We won a cup. So won MLS Cup in 2021. First cup in New York's history, which was just phenomenal. Yeah, wonderful experience. And then I think then you've got a choice to make. Like you say, what's after being a performance director is to start getting into the front office. So now you're starting to look at becoming a sporting director or, an assistant general manager or something like that. And you've got to sort of decide at that point, like, how much you want that. Because now you're dealing with agents, you're dealing with contracts, you're getting further and further away from the actual performance elements of the team. You're getting more into team building, which was hugely appealing to me. But as I started to look at the amount of time that I'd spent away from Michelle, the things we'd kicked down the road, travel. I haven't been home for Christmas to the UK for 18 years. So I haven't, been around my family for Christmas. All these things you miss. Yeah. We actually decided not to have kids because I wasn't going to be present. So all of these things we've missed, and we started thinking, well, we could recommit and go onto this new path, or we're still young, we're still able to do whatever we want, so we could get out and do something else, which is a bit of a scary proposition, because you've built a whole career around this one thing. And it's a tough one too, because it's a very
identity as well.
Yeah, because you don't do anything else. I don't have hobbies. Like, it's 24/7. You're just in your job. Yeah. And also it's a very externally validating role. Anybody you tell what your job is, they give you a pat on the back and tell you how great it is. Yeah. So it's almost like you almost lose the ability to self-validate, because you've just got this thing that everyone thinks is really cool. And you're paid really well to do it, and it's I don't know, it's good enough, it's a great job, a great life, but then there's that. Okay, what is there that is more in life, not just career, but you start thinking about you've given up now a large chunk of the life piece of it, and so that was ultimately what drove the decision, is that, what if something happened to one of us and we'd kicked all this stuff down the road for this long, and all we had to show for it was this career?
I don't think it's any. I don't think it's coincidence that you're presumably around 40 at that point, right?
Yeah, that's right.
Because I'm also I've flogged myself. I've worked really, really hard. Some wins, some losses, right, over the last few years. And I'm approaching 40 now. I've got a couple of young kids, and when you approach these ages, you think about the next decade. I mean, it's completely arbitrary, but it's just you do. You think about your 30s, your 20s. I'm thinking about my 40s, and I'm realizing I don't want my life to be like this.
Correct.
And I've actually started a process of my business is where it is, and I was going for all out growth, right? All out, and I think we're onto something here. I think we do something I think unique and highly valuable. But what I realised is, the last few years, I don't want my next 10 years to be like this, and I've completely changed. I've completely changed how I intend to spend the next 10 years, and it's mean the direction of this business is going to change, and I'm totally cool with that.
Yes,
I'm going to focus on. I reckon I'm going into this decade with my kids where they want to hang out with me, so I want to hang out with them. And I don't want to spend every night working and worrying about work and thinking and bringing on clients who I'm not sure we're the best fit for.
Yeah,
and I'm going to be spending my days differently. I'm going to be spending my time differently. And it's kind of exciting, but sorry, I made that about me. But I don't think it's any. I don't think it's I don't think it's just I think you're at that point of life probably as well.
There's no question, and it is because you start seeing some things happening around you. There's a strength coach in the NFL who had a heart attack and died in his weight room.
Yeah.
And a servant of the club he was with, he'd been there for years and celebrated and all this. They still played the game on Sunday.
Yeah,
right. Someone was doing his job on Monday when the players showed up. At the Nets, we had an assistant coach have a heart attack at practice. He survived it, but narrowly. And you just start thinking if I die in this weight room, I'm going to be so mad. I still haven't been to Greece. I gotta go do some stuff. I gotta live some life. I gotta spend some time with Michelle. And it's exactly that. So really started getting into a journey of self-exploration, self-discovery. I think more growth on the personal side.
Yeah.
And that it almost made it untenable to stay within this pro sport structure where it's an extractive culture where you're just giving and giving and giving of yourself.
Yeah. You're privileged to work here, so just suck it up and get on with it. And
exactly. But
you need us more than we need you.
Exactly right. And when the system's done with you, it is done with you. You are out. It doesn't matter if you could be with the club 30 years.
Yeah.
Right? You dedicated everything. You've missed all of this stuff with your family, and the club decides, we're going a different direction. You're out.
Yeah, totally.
And you're gone. Right? And so I was quite fortunate to be able to make the decision to leave. Never got fired in my career, and that's something I was really proud of. We had a lot of success in building systems. I feel like we made a difference in changing the paradigm of how athletes are prepared in sport. Right on the coalface, really doing the work to change that. And so then it was time to do what you're doing. You just think about I don't think you can keep going on that trajectory. What gets you to the top can't keep you going that way, because then you just burn out and you just crash on the other side. So I think there has to be an adjustment where once you've reached that level of functioning, you have to find a way to maintain your level of performance. Of course, keep growing, but it can't be at that same pace as all-out growth, as you were alluding to. And I think it actually will take you further than if you just keep going, keep burning, I think bringing a bit more balance into your life and pouring more into the family, I think will give you more for the business in the long run.
I agree with you. That's what I think is. I think that's what's going to happen as well. Because once you stop, there's that whole the whole thing about scarcity. Once we've made ourselves more selective, right? Really much more selective. We want to work with a certain sort of person who really wants to work with us, and happily refer other people away.
Yeah.
And it's so freeing.
Yeah.
It's so and not having to try and bring everyone on board as a client, be happy to turn people away. And the irony is, more people don't want to work with us.
Right.
I mean,
right. Yeah.
I think it's the vibes you put out into the world.
Yeah.
I think as well. So tell us, what are you doing now? And this is the Vitality Collective, right? Tell us about that.
Collective. So I got out of sport, and I've sort of tried out a few things. We've spent some time, as I said, just getting to know myself. But what has become really clear, being out in the real world, is that healthcare is broken. It's just broken. We're so invested in people being sick, and so it's been really interesting thinking about, well, how do I take my skill set from sport and apply it to that problem? So what I'm building is a model that sort of redefines and reimagines healthcare, where we take this model of elite athlete preparation and we bring it into the longevity space. Because the one thing's clear is we're not going to medicate our way to longevity, right? The medications that we take move the needle such a small amount. Versus, if you...
Jeremy, is Ozempic not the answer to all our prayers?
Well, that's where I'm going with this. Of course it is. Yeah. Well, that's the thing. We don't know what the side effects of this thing are going to be.
I know, it's wild.
And all it's doing is reducing your appetite. So, fit people don't do this sort of stuff, right? And so, the way I'm imagining this, I don't even like the term longevity. Longevity feels like a concept that's far away, right? It's this thing that we can deal with in the future. We'll get to that. Right now, I'm going to burn myself out. Right now, I'm going to grind. I want to bring that approach that we do with the athletes. It's vitality. We improve the athlete's performance through their health, but we had to do it every single day because they had to perform every single day on camera. So if we attend to those minute details of your daily life that make you feel great, if your shoulder's sore, we deal with it. Because play that out 20 years. If that sore shoulder, you start avoiding things that happen out here. So we gradually downplay our capacity. Next thing you know, you can't lift your arm above your head. Right? Next thing you know, you've torn your rotator cuff. Tear your rotator cuff, you have to get a surgery. And now your capacity, rather than decreasing slowly, there's a stepwise change in your VO2 max, your strength, your muscle mass, and then it continues to decline. We can't afford these big step drop-offs. And so if we attend to these little things every single day, we feel great today, we can maintain the things that actually impact longevity, having strong quads, having strong grip strength, having community, laughing and being around people. We can still do that. But if we let this shoulder keep going, now we can't go to the tennis club anymore. That was where our whole community was. Now we're sitting in our chair at home more. We're detached and disconnected from community.
I think that's a really subtle and clever distinction, because the end objective is the same, right? Longevity, not just longevity though. It's like a well-lived longevity.
It's but if health you span, yes. Right?
Health span, thank you, yeah.
So you got lifespan and health span, and often we spend the last 20 years, down here, miserable.
Yeah.
I want to fall off a cliff. I want to go and boom.
Yeah. No. And if you say longevity, I'm approaching 40, and if you say longevity to me, I think great, that's out there. But if you say do you want to be vital, do you want to feel, do you want to have vitality? I'd like that now. And part of this other thing about turning 40 is 20 years ago I had a back operation. Right. 14 years ago I ruptured my Achilles playing squash, and now these things are starting. And at the time, you had an operation, moved on, and now they're starting to play on my mind a little bit because I'm starting to feel it.
That's
and,
correct.
So you start to become aware of the all these things that you've deferred and put off.
Yeah.
They're coming at you, right? And
and do you want to still be able to play squash? And with your back, do you want to be able to pick your kids up?
Yeah, well,
right? You want to be able to throw your kids up in the air like
yes.
your dad did to you. You want to be able to do all these things. But what I mean by vitality is you won't be able to do that.
Yes.
If you don't attend to that, right? And so that's not the life you want to live. And so our physical body, how we live, is the joy we experience in life. And so if we take this model of surrounding you with a multidisciplinary approach to this, so I can't answer all of your problems. So we have medical staff, we have physical therapists, we have psychologists. If you surround yourself with this network or this collective, as we're calling it, of people, and we catch stuff before it becomes a problem. So for example, if you came to us, we already know we got to get your back feeling great, and we've got to get your Achilles to a point, because in your 40s, like men in their 40s are in the highest demographic for tearing their Achilles, because we still think of ourselves as being great athletes, right? and we detrain. Sam's laughing at us now. Yup. So you detrain, and then you want to go and play basketball, you want to go play squash, and boom, you plant that foot, your Achilles pops, because your capacity, you haven't been aware of it because you haven't done that stuff for a while. So we've got to think, okay, we take it from, what do you want to be able to do? All right, I want to be able to throw my kids in the air until they weigh 70 pounds, 80 pounds, all right? I want to be able to play squash. Okay, I want to be able to hike or sprint. We know the demands of all of these activities. So we can play that right back into your training. And we can also play it right back into, okay, well, what is going to break if you try and do that today? Right? If you try and get a 70-pound weight and you go from a full squat to an explosive throw up in the air, your back's going to be your limiting factor. Right? And that's going to put you out. And that's going to give you that stepwise change in capacity. And so that first spin through Vitality Collective is where we have to assess you. Then we have to create a really bespoke intervention for you based on your goals and then our goals for you. And then you have to go out and perform.
Right.
And then we have to come back full circle.
Right. So is this, do people come into an actual clinic? Is this an app? Is this online?
Yeah.
Like is it an app now but will become a clinic? What's the
where
are we at now and what's the vision?
Yeah, exactly. So it's a clinic now, right? And so you come in and the intake is an assessment with a physical therapist. We go through a whole range, VO2 max testing. We go through your strength testing at every joint in the body. We go through cognitive testing, full cognitive screen on brain function. And then, blood work, genetic makeup, all this sort of stuff. That's how your program's designed. So we can see exactly where the weak links are in your chain, and we immediately start focusing on them. So you'll see the PT, you'll see myself. You might need interventions from the doc, and that's how we build that program.
So you're communicating with someone's doctor as well, or is a doctor within
Absolutely.
the collective?
Yeah, we'll have medical partners within the collective. But then, yes, we're not trying to replace anyone's doctor. They'll come to us for this stuff, then we'll communicate directly with their docs or anyone that they work with. Is
this all only in person at the moment, or can anyone in the country do this?
Yeah, right now it's in person, but the goal is to democratize it. I think the goal, we're right now at a point where we're just starting to roll this out. But the proof of the pudding has been pro sport for the last 20 years. And then what we want to do is democratize that down first to a sort of a membership level where it's more of an athletic club type deal. And then we want to go into a digital format where now we can do a on-camera assessment. We can assess all of your biomechanics and your program gets sent to you in that regard.
This is one of those things where you're like, how does this not exist already?
Yeah, exactly.
That's...
yeah.
So... It's so obviously the way it should.
Yeah,
it should go.
Well, it's medicine 3.0 is the term that's sort of coming about.
Oh, is it? Okay.
But for me, it's because it's Medicine 3.0 is about proactive medicine. Right now, the model is set up. When you get sick, I can give you medication. But what we're looking at is how do we do all these preventative screens where maybe your shoulder doesn't hurt yet, but we know you're lacking external rotation, which we know is going to lead to shoulder pain or injury. So we fix the range of motion before we're fixing pain.
So, Jeremy, in I think it was 2020, my back went again. Same part of my back that I had a discectomy on a few years ago, and it was the worst pain I've ever been in my life. It was building, and then it just went into crescendo of like just agony. Cut long story short, essentially, I went to my doctors and I got referred. First, I got put on drugs, then I got referred to a surgeon, and she said another discectomy or a fusion. And she, great surgeon. If I have this done, eventually I'll be going back to her. Fantastic.
Yeah.
But then the pain got so bad they sent me for an injection, and I had this injection, and funny story, my wife took me in the back of our Jeep, and literally we had a baby in the car. She literally rolled up to the hospital, opened the boot, I rolled out, like when like a drug addict's friends OD'd and they're dropping them off at the doctors, and they had to come. It was like nothing I've ever experienced. This pain, truly horrendous. I had this injection, and I was scheduled to have another discectomy in a couple of days, in like 3 or 4 days' time. And I'd opted for a second discectomy on the same disc because I didn't want to have a fusion, because a fusion meant I couldn't have picked up my kid for 6 months, and my wife would have to do everything. So so I went with another discectomy. And the night before, the insurance company pulled the operation. And they said he's had this injection, he's got to go and see a physio for 6 times. And I was devastated, right? I was all psyched up for an operation. Anyway, I went to the physio, and here we are 3 years on, coming up for 4 years on.
Yeah.
And I'm in great shape. Yeah, I went to the physio, and my back pain didn't return. I started going back to CrossFit, and I'm now stretching and doing other stuff.
Yeah.
And I'm not dissing my surgeon in any way or doctor in any way, shape or form, but it's that saying about to every hammer, everything looks like a nail. Everything looks like a nail to a hammer, right?
Yeah, exactly right.
Whereas I feel like in this kind of thing that you're talking about, maybe it'd have been, okay, what's the array of solutions? Surgery being the last one. Yeah. And maybe it wouldn't even got to the point where I was in agony on my bedroom floor, unable to sleep, taking OxyContin. I get it, by the way. Having taken it, I get it. I see why people get hooked on it.
Likewise. Yeah.
Right? But that was. I nearly went under the knife on L4, L5 disc for the second time, and I didn't, and that was a good thing.
Mm-hmm. So. Anytime you can avoid getting a scar is a really good thing. Yeah. And so it's always a last resort for us. And the issue becomes we have really, this is medicine 2.0. You go see a doctor, you're coming out with a scar, right? Yeah. Because that's the intervention that they're taught. Yeah. Right. They're not taught what's to the left and the right of that. Even if you do end up having the surgery, they're not taught about the rehab process. Even with orthopedic surgeries, you have an ACL. At 6 months, you are cleared. The reasoning behind that is because the graft itself has matured, right? It's healed, it's got some blood proliferation and all this sort of stuff. But the mechanics of how that injury happened are not even close. You should be 12 plus months before you return to anything. And so that's the battle we're fighting, is how do we effectively rehab from injury and bring you back to the level of performance that you need so that you don't re-injure your back. So after that first surgery, what we would have done, if we sometimes we can't avoid injury, so you get there. We need to properly rehab you from the back injury. So yes, the physio, you wouldn't have been there 6 times. You'd have been there until you had returned to the baseline that we wanted you at, right? It wouldn't have just involved the physio. It would have involved your strength and conditioning coach, right? Because your physio will take you to that next level. So your doc gets you to a level, your physio gets you to a level, and then your strength coach gets you to a level. And because then we know, okay, you want to go back to CrossFit. It's going to put more force through your spine than just about anything that you're going to do. So then it's like, okay, how do we manage return to CrossFit? And we manage that whole process until you're ready to go. And that's how we'd manage you now if you came to us, right? Yes, it is in person. So we know the demands that are going to be placed on your Achilles. We know the demands that are going to be placed on your back. We'd guide you through that It's not that there's no place for docs in this, because sometimes you need that injection so that you can do the physio. That gives you access to the exercise, and then now you're strong enough to go back to your strength coach, your personal trainer. So that's where there's a role for everybody. Nobody's ever at zero, but nobody's ever on their own either.
Yeah.
No one of us have the solution to any part of this.
You know, I'm sold. I ruptured my Achilles at 26, and I've never played squash since, just out of pure fear. So I'm sold. So if anyone's
where the psychologist comes in, right? Because now we've finished that process. You're physically capable. We've shown you the data, but you're fearful. So now we've got mindset training. But part of your rehab, that last phase of the rehab, we've got psychologists involved, and we're actually putting you in those situations throughout your rehab to build your comfort with it.
So anyone listening who's similarly taken with this as I am, if they're in is it just the Santa Barbara area? Is it Southern California?
So Santa Barbara right now. But yeah, like Southern California, you know, we're going to be getting this together pretty quick here and up and running, and you know, it's just so exciting to be working with a new demographic to me. I love building stuff.
Yeah, me too. Right, just changing gear slightly.
All right.
We pretty much every expat I speak to comes to America for a variation of one reason, right? And that reason is opportunity.
Yeah.
Opportunity in their career, opportunity to earn more money, opportunity to change their lives and their family's life. So with that in mind, when you think about opportunity or wealth, how does that in America? How does that compare to, say, your experience in the UK?
Yeah, I sort of alluded to it earlier, but growing up in the UK, it felt like you were born into your bracket of income, of wealth, of, you know, whatever. It didn't feel like there was upward mobility. You know, very much discouraged from taking risks, very much discouraged from like moving to the States. But you're really encouraged to stay within your demographic. You know, if you had money in England growing up, it felt like it was because you were born and you had money.
You were ordained, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
You know, and you look at the class system there, right?
Yeah,
like,
totally.
There's the whole
you stay
aristocracy.
In your box, and you stay in your box, and you stay in your box. Yeah.
We live over here in these estates because we're born on them.
Yeah.
And they're ours, right? And you lot are born over there. So moving to the States for me, because I was very ambitious, I was very driven, but almost sort of in that state of depression, because it was like, well, I couldn't find a way to express that drive.
I don't want to be a personal trainer at David Lloyd all my life. And I'm not dissing anyone for that, but it's just there's got to be more. I go back to what you said. There's got to be more than this.
Yes, there has to be more. And there was no correlation really even between work harder, earn more, move up. Yeah. You know, it was just like it was just okay. It was like you survived.
I don't know how America does it, but this is what America does. Like, there's sport in the UK. There's fantastic sport in the UK.
Yeah.
There's sport in America. But the career you've had, what you're doing now, unimaginable. I don't know how America just creates. Is it an abundance of resources? Is it mentality? Is it? I don't know how they do it, and I talk to everyone about it.
It's a mindset. I was thinking about it earlier. You know, I was thinking this morning about being on the show, and I was like, what is it about America? What do I love? And it's convenience is what came to mind. But I'm like, well, but why is it convenience? And what it is, it's this mindset where if somebody runs into a bit of friction, they see the opportunity and they fix it. If you're in the UK, that friction is just there and people just bitch about it for generations. Right, just generations of people like, this should be different.
Yeah.
In America, one person runs into it and they're like, well, this is going to change. I'm going to build like me now here. I look at the healthcare system. I'm like, well, this is terrible. I'm going to change it. And I can. And people are like, wow, that's a great idea. Yeah, you should do that. Not like, well, you're not going to change the healthcare. Who are you? You know?
Yes. Oh God, yeah. The moment you
Right?
said that, you triggered something in me. Yes,
Yeah,
that's
like,
exactly what.
ooh.
Yeah, yes. Yeah. Who do you think you are? You can. No, it's been tried. No one can do that.
We've got the NHS. You know, you're not going to fix
Yeah.
that. It's too big.
Yeah.
Here, it's
Give
like,
up.
yeah, absolutely. We should change that, right? And so it's just this mindset of see a problem, fix it. See a problem, fix it. It's this entrepreneurial sense, and I think being an immigrant into the country, you said it when we spoke before, but you're a risk taker at heart, right? You've moved here. You've left everything behind, and so, you know, I think we're really well geared to come into this system and thrive.
Yeah, I agree with that. Yeah, I think there's something to I can't remember what the stats are, but there are stats about most of the millionaires that are minted in America now through businesses and stuff are immigrants. I don't think there's any surprise.
Right. Yeah, it's four times. You're 4 times more likely to become a millionaire as an immigrant.
Right. I'm just quoting it. Yeah. My source is here. Yeah, that makes total logical sense to me. The sort of people who come here and then and why they're attracted to America in particular, because I love Europe so much and I miss Europe so much, but there's a reason I live in America, not Europe right now, and it's because I was attracted by that attitude and that mentality and the opportunity. I'm still wrestling with it. I think what you just said was fantastic, but it's so stark and noticeable, this opportunity that America creates for everyone. It's remarkable. It is remarkable. You can diss America. You can slag America off for a lot of reasons, but this is one thing where they just win.
It's a giant corporation.
Yes.
Just get on board with it. You know, this is what it is.
Okay, right. I'm going to try something new with you. I'm going to try a rapid fire round.
All right.
What do you love about America?
We just talked about opportunity.
Yeah. What do you love most about living in America?
Ooh, living in America, the variety. Santa Barbara, you drive across the country and you watch the country change in front of you, right? From lush East Coast through the desert out to California with the palm trees. It's a continent on its own.
I would have accepted Santa Barbara. You could have stopped there. But what you just said though, I haven't done that yet. I can't wait. When my kids are a bit older, I can't wait to jump in a car or an RV or whatever it is,
rent
and
an RV.
Travel across
It's
America.
amazing.
Yeah,
it's so good.
And I want to do the trains as well.
Oh yeah.
I really look forward to that because this country's mega for scenery and that kind of stuff.
It's incredible.
Okay, what do you dislike?
It is an extractive capitalist society.
Great answer.
You come here, you get opportunity, but my God, you work for it. Like the work here is God, right? Do not mention vacation. I didn't have the word vacation in my contract for about 20 years.
That is a great answer, and that is something we have to wrestle with. That it is extractive, and it can crush you. That can crush you, and you can chase all the opportunity and the accolades and the money you want. But to our point before, if you've got no life around it, what's the point?
Yeah, and it will spit you out when it's done with you.
It will. Yeah. I really don't think people think that organizations that are made up of hundreds, thousands of people have loyalty to them or sentiment or feelings towards them, and they just simply don't.
No.
What do you miss about the UK?
Banter,
yeah. Pubs and banter. Yeah, absolutely. What are you glad to be rid of?
Restrictive mindset.
Mm-hmm.
You know, just a fixed mindset.
Could you ever see yourself going back?
No.
Really? Never? Are you a US citizen?
Not yet.
You're not yet? Is there?
No, I moved to Canada, and that reset the clock on applying.
Got it. Yeah, okay. Yeah, but you've not taken that for some sort of ideological reason.
No, I mean, having the British passport, you don't think you'll ever need it. You know what I mean? It's fine. You know, but being here more now, like I don't. I'll never say never move back,
okay.
but it's difficult to see a way that would happen.
Never say never, but never. But never say never.
Right. But yeah.
Okay, this is the big one. American football or soccer?
Oh, God, soccer.
Oh, thank goodness for that. Yeah, right.
Yeah,
That's the right
football.
answer.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Jason Bourne or James Bond?
I mean, James Bond. Come on.
Really? I had to think about this. I can't pick one. I remember where I was in the cinema when Jason Bourne woke up on that bench and kicked those Dutch or German police officers' butts. I mean, I struggle with it.
Yeah, but James Bond's going to do it in a tux.
Yeah, no, I love James Bond. How can you not? So. Okay. All right. So, Plan First Wealth, our purpose is to help British expats living in America to really thrive here. Now, there's several ways we do that, and obviously we've built houses around finances and wealth, but one of the main approaches is to help people take advantage of opportunities and avoid landmines. Right. So, with that in mind, opportunities and landmines, I'm going to ask you, what if you could go back and give yourself advice or give someone coming here advice to really thrive here, to make the most of it? It doesn't have to be finance related. It's just obviously what we do is finance related. But what could you think of any advice that you would give someone, yourself 20 years ago or someone coming here today?
Yeah, I think what I got was early on, I got exposed to a different mindset around money. The UK, and I don't know if it's really changed now. I haven't been there for so long, but it was very geared around pensions, right? You got your state pension, and so nobody's thinking about saving. Getting exposed to people who were saving for retirement, saving an emergency fund, having 3 to 6 months of expenses in an account. These are concepts that were totally foreign to me coming over to the States. But watching the power of investing just a small amount of your income and watching that grow over time, like it's transformational. So I think the earlier I'm trying to pass that message back to the UK to my nephew and my siblings, is there isn't a pension coming. You need to be taking care of this, or not even that there isn't one coming, but you can control this.
This is a great point. I just think there's more of a belief, wrong belief, that the state's going to take care of you.
Yeah,
and it's not. Whereas in America, they know they're not coming to save you. Even though Social Security is much larger here, they know they're not coming to save you, and you got to stand on your own 2 feet, and that involves saving and investing. Yeah, that's a real mindset difference.
Yeah. That would, I think that's both an opportunity and a landmine.
Yeah.
People who don't save.
Yes.
You can end up falling into a trap of your credit card becomes your emergency fund. And then before you know it, you're 20, 30, 40 grand in debt because you didn't, tighten up and save a little bit, for the thing that is going to come up.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
Like, I think, and maybe that's the landmine to avoid, is that something's coming up.
Save. Yeah.
Be ready for it.
Emergency fund. I'm surprised by the amount of people who don't have emergency funds in the UK.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a long time since I was there, but I am surprised by that, or I was.
Mm-hmm.
Right, so Jeremy, this is a podcast about being an expat in America. So I ask everyone the same question. What, if anything, does the American dream mean to you?
It means to me having the opportunity to build my future, to be in control of my own future and my own destiny.
I like it. I'm with you. I'll take that. All right. Let's leave it there. Jeremy, thank you for joining us today. Thanks for being a guest on Always an Expat. I appreciate it.
Yeah, Richard, it's been a blast. Thanks so much for having me.
I'll tell you what, we should add one thing. Where can people find you?
Oh, good question. LinkedIn, Jeremy Bettel, Instagram, vitalitycollective.health.
Okay.
And then the website is also vitalitycollective.health.
Vitalitycollective.health. Do you have like a newsletter thing going on for people to subscribe?
I will have.
Okay.
Yeah. Currently 2 weeks in, so that is in the roadmap. Yes.
2 weeks in, great.
Yeah.
No, get that up and running.
For sure.
Vitalitycollective.health.
Yeah.
You're going to run out, get an email subscription service, so when we send people there, they can stick in their email addresses, because I'll do it as well.
Exactly right. Yeah, brilliant.
And then when you either come over to the East Coast, or my wife and I finally give in and move to Santa Barbara, then you can get started on my back and Achilles, and everything else is going wrong.
Yeah, we'll get going right away, mate.
All right. Thanks, pal.
Beautiful.
This is a great chat.
All right. Thank you.
See ya. Bye bye.